Hi, I'm John, and I am a recovered chip yipper. I had an excruciatingly bad case of the chip yips. Max out case, 10 out of 10, full blown. It plagued me for 6 years. I suffered for 6 years. It was absolute torture. Any reasonable human being would have given up the game of golf. But I persevered, and I ultimately solved it, and I'm going to share with you how I solved it. If you have the chip yips, you know exactly what I'm talking about. However, all amateur golfers occasionally will mishit a chip. You'll chunk it, you'll blade it, and even sometimes, rarely, if you're particularly nervous, you might actually even whiff. Or double hit is another common symptom of poor chipping. So regardless of whether you think you actually have the yips or not, you will benefit from hearing what I'm going to talk about today in this video. The way that the full-blown yips developed in my case, and I think that this may be an experience that others have had as well, is that I would hit an occasional bad chip, and that became more and more frequent, and then I started to develop anxiety every time I had to chip, and the anxiety would result in more bad shots, and before I knew it, I had a full-blown case of the yips. The problem was this sort of jerky muscular motion in the downswing. Typically, I was over-accelerating the club in the downswing, and my club head would be out of position because of this erratic muscular activity, and invariably I would hit the ball. Let's take a look at some yips, and then let's see where I am today. So here we have a blade, an actual whiff, another mishit, a chunk whiff, and another bad shot. So this is the current status of my chipping. As you can see, I'm going to hit a few consecutive shots here and not yip any of them. During those 6 very difficult years, I took innumerable lessons with multiple different teachers, spent thousands of dollars. I read every book I could find on the subject. I saw every video on YouTube that I could find, and I tried every solution that was recommended, and ultimately my teachers just threw their hands up in the air and told me that there was a good possibility that I would never be able to cure the problem. I tried pharmacologic solutions, specifically propranolol, which is a beta blocker that's used for people with performance anxiety when they're public speaking. And I even tried benzodiazepines. The one thing I didn't try was hypnosis, and I never actually saw a sports psychologist. Short of that, I did everything else I could possibly do to try to cure the problem. So ultimately, I figured out that the problem was erratic muscular activity in the downswing. My backswing was smooth, but as the club was coming to the ball, because of my anxiety, I was misaligning the club head invariably, and I was over-accelerating the club as well. So in the worst case scenario, I would whiff. Otherwise, I might top the ball or blade, or usually chunk. And for some reason, I don't even know how this happens, but I was double hitting frequently, especially out of traps. I don't know how that happened. But ultimately, I figured out that you had to eliminate the erratic muscular activity in order to maintain club head alignment so you could strike the ball cleanly. The way that I eliminated this muscular aberrance was by allowing gravity to be the sole determinant of club head acceleration. The way I did that was by totally relaxing my body, relaxing my shoulders, my arms, my wrists, my hands, and my body as well. And I'll explain that in a minute. So that the only thing driving the club was gravity. And if I could train myself to completely relax at the top of the backswing and just let the club fall in a gentle arc, I was able to routinely hit the ball cleanly. And that included trying to hit a flop shot out of a very tight lie, which is really a very, very difficult thing to do. But this method would actually allow me to do that. Now, one of the results of this method is that you have to bring the club head back significantly farther in order to generate the club head speed that you need in order to get the ball to where you want it to land on the green. So that's something you just have to teach yourself. And there's a video by Padraig Harrington that I want to share with you that I think is extremely helpful.
The reality of a good chipper is his backswing is going to be longer than his follow through, okay? There's going to be an element of gravity in the downswing. So if you want to be a good chipper, you've got to feel like there's an element of the club head falling on its own pace. You cannot drive that club head. So if you're short and you're afraid of accelerating, you're going to keep driving the hands. You can't hit a golf ball from there. That has to flick. Whereas what I'm saying is, you go back and you'll feel very long till you start off with. You should go back long enough that there's an element of gravity helping the downswing. So your downswing will look more like that. Like, I couldn't strike that shot better. It was as pure as can be. Long backswing, short follow through, with a little bit of gravity helping. So a little bit of the club falling on its own weight rather than you feeling like you need to drive that club. We don't want the short swing. We don't want any of that. So the practice for you is go down here a little bit, is definitely feeling of even I'm going to chip this one even a little shorter, is long and short. So long backswing, short follow through.
So after I started using this technique, I started noticing when watching golfers on television that professional golfers actually use the same method. And it's particularly apparent if they're trying to hit a very difficult shot, such as a flop shot off a very tight lie using probably a lob wedge. So let's take a look at some professional golfers using precisely the gravity technique that we're describing. Here we have Joaquin Niemann. Victor Hovland using the gravity technique. Dustin Johnson. And we have to include Scottie Scheffler, of course. So there are four key elements that I have found useful in trying to implement this technique. Now, the first is, of course, the relaxation of the arms. And that includes your wrists, too, because after I started doing this, after a while, I started relapsing and not knowing what's going on here. And I figured out that I was actually stiffening my wrists. So you actually have to let your wrists be loose as well. So your wrists, your hands, your shoulders, and your arms. So that's the first key element. And you just let gravity determine club head acceleration. You don't contribute in any way to gravity. You just let gravity do the work. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to have a gentle rotation of the body, because I found that if my body was stiff, I was yipping. It didn't matter if everything else was relaxed, because the stiffness in my body sort of imparted this erratic muscular activity, so it contributed to the yipping. So you've got to have a gentle rotation. Your body has to be relaxed along with your arms. The third is to have a shallow takeaway rather than a steep takeaway, because that allows you to use the bounce, and the bounce is somewhat forgiving. So even if you don't hit it absolutely perfectly, you can still get a good result. And the fourth element, and I don't know why this is crucial, but after I set everything up and I figure out where I want the ball to land and I kind of think of how fast I want the club head to go, I keep my head down and I don't look up to see what the outcome is until well after I've hit the ball. And so those four things, that's sort of a checklist that I go through every single time I chip. And when I do that, I generally never miss hit. I mean, it's rare that I miss hit a chip now. Now, one other element that I think is important is the one that Podrick mentioned, which is that because gravity is the sole determinant of club head acceleration, you're going to have to bring the club back significantly farther if you want to hit the ball farther. So you don't have, in other words, you're not determining club head speed. You're letting gravity do that. So you're going to have to bring the club head as far back as is necessary in order to get the club head speed that you want to hit the shot. This is in contrast to what I would call active chipping, which the pros use for the most part. I mean, they don't use this method too frequently. I use it all the time. But the pros actually just bring the club back and then they determine club head acceleration, and they're really good at it, and they don't yip, obviously. Here's a little video clip of what I would call active chipping. So let's take a look at the current status of my chipping game and the sort of what my chipping looks like at this time. So let's review the four elements that we had discussed. The first is, of course, allowing the gravity to be the sole determinant of club head acceleration. At the top of the backswing, you just have to completely relax everything. So the second thing is to have a shallow takeaway, not a steep takeaway. That's very important. And the third one is that you have to allow for a gentle rotation of the body. Do not stiffen the body, because stiffening the body will result in yipping. And the last thing is that you really want to try to keep your head down all the way through the swing and not look at the results. And just concentrate on letting gravity allow the club head to pass through the ball. So in summary, for 6 long years, I had a maxed out case of the chip yips. I took multiple lessons and I tried every solution that I could find on the internet and in books, and nothing was working. And then I stumbled on this concept of using gravity as the sole determinant of club head acceleration, because that eliminates any muscular contribution, because erratic muscular activity was resulting in club head misalignment. This is a technique that pros actually use when they need to have perfect precision, such as using a lob wedge off a tight lie and trying to hit a flop shot. So I think this is a concept that I think everyone can benefit from. If you have a full-blown case of the yips, you might, like I do, use it on all your chips. I mean, this has become my standard technique, those 4 steps that I mentioned. But if you're somebody that doesn't really have a case of the chip yips, you can use it selectively when you need perfect precision on a particular chip and you have to clip it perfectly. So I would urge you all to give this a try, and let's make chipping fun again. So let's get out there, chip the ball near the hole, 1 putt, make some pars, make some birdies, and enjoy this incredible game that we all love so much. Thanks.